this was a performance for the ages for Josh Allen. I mean, when you look at the stat sheet, it's not like it's like the most passing yards ever. He threw for 263 yards. He was 23 for 30, threw for the 4 touchdowns. But basically everything that I just listed off happened in the first half because they were up by so much they didn't even need him in the second half. So he basically was just superhuman for 2 quarters of football, and they didn't really need to do much for the second half. But Seth, when you watch Josh Allen, I mean, is there anybody playing the position better than this dude right now? Because it feels like the answer is no.
No, there isn't. He is like, it's hard to put him above Mahomes because I think situationally it's a lot better in Buffalo right now than it is Kansas City. We talked about that last week, that the situation just isn't very good in Kansas City. It's a lot better in Buffalo. So it's tough to like just say like, oh, well, he's playing better, therefore he's better. I still think he is as good as Patrick Mahomes. I think he is tied at QB1, and I think that he probably deserved the MVP last year, to be honest. He should have, at least he should have been in the conversation. Like it ended up being that runaway Lamar Purdy narrative about halfway through the season, or maybe 3/4 through the season. Josh Allen was playing at such a high level last year that he should have been part of that conversation as well. This offense is really interesting because the Jaguars game is a little bit of an anomaly because the Jaguars play man coverage pretty much every snap of every football game so far this season.
Which is bold.
And Ryan Nielsen, coming from under Dennis Allen, where the Saints play a ton of man coverage, so like kind of expected, but they played at a really, really high level. So you saw Joe Brady come out and just scheme it up. Oh, we're getting man coverage. Here's all my 12 favorite perfect man coverage plays. And Josh Allen was perfect on them, throwing the ball accurately, and they had no chance. I mean, the Jaguars had absolutely no chance. But in general, this offense, when they play a team that's going to mix up coverages, going to play more zone, in general, the offense is like not that complicated. They run maybe like 5 or 6 base concepts in the passing game. And they just do a lot. I mean, Darren Orlovsky was talking about this yesterday. I think he alluded to it, that they window dress a lot with formations and motions, but they're not really doing a lot kind of conceptually in terms of what the route combinations that they run. And I keep going back to this whole idea, like this, we have to ban safeties. The NFL should make it so that defenses can only play with 9 players on the field, like Mel Kiper was saying. But when you have a quarterback like this who can make all these correct decisions, who can throw the ball accurately anywhere on the field, so much of this offense is based on in-breaking routes. And well, if you're going to play too high, you're going to void a lot of spaces in the middle of the field, and they will hit you in those spaces. That whole offense is based on these type of routes and these type of route combinations. And Josh Allen, being that he's so good, can handle that, whereas a lot of other quarterbacks can't handle it. And we're seeing all this narrative about too high, we got to ban too high and all that stuff. So to me, he's playing at an elite level. Kind of should be so far the MVP of the league, and I'm excited to see what this offense can do going forward.
And I want to get into some of what you talked about there with like, okay, they're running sort of like the same formations, because I sort of want to get into sort of like what you've seen of like, okay, just digging into a little bit more of it, sort of like simple stuff there and explaining that. But you and I were talking before the show, and when I'm watching Josh Allen last night, and I'm watching some more of his film this morning before we were popping on to talk about this, who he is as a player, we talk about guys who change the math in the game of football, right? Because football is often just a math game. Okay, I've got 2 guys on 1 guy here, and you have the advantage there. Or, our 5 guys against your 5 guys, or whatever. And it's a math equation. So much of defensive and offensive chess matches is math equations and getting more numbers in a certain area to put your side of the ball in a more advantageous situation. Josh Allen's arm talent, not even arm talent, overall talent is a math buster. It destroys the math, because you get in these situations like last night where they might be playing like tight man coverage, but it doesn't matter because the dude can put the football in a football-sized window, like straight in man coverage. And you have these other opportunities where, I can't remember which touchdown this was. I can't remember who caught this one. He's a right-handed quarterback. He's rolling left and like contorts his body to then just throw it on a rope exactly where it needs to go. That shouldn't happen. Like, you're getting a right-handed quarterback to scramble to his left, and then you've got pretty good coverage throughout the field. Like, that should be, defense should have won that rep. And Josh Allen's just so good that there's nothing that you could do. There were so many plays last night against the Bills that you just go, what are they supposed to do? Or sorry, against the Jags, that you just go, what are they supposed to do here? You just have to hat tip Josh Allen. You're playing the best quarterback in the world right now, who has all the ability in the world, who's playing unbelievably confident, who is not putting the ball in harm's way. Because that was always the Josh Allen thing, right? The ceiling was always there, but the floor was also a little bit lower with him because of how much he maybe thought he could get away with and how much he would put the ball in harm's way, whether it was running, whether it was fumbling, whether it was throwing interceptions. And he's just not doing that this year. And instead, it's just the good. And when it's just the good with Josh Allen, they are capable of putting up 40-plus points against an aggressive defense like we saw the Jags deploy. So I do want you to kind of talk a little bit more about things being sort of simple for them, because no Stephon Diggs, no Gabe Davis, right? And that was a big talking point during the season. Josh Allen completed passes to 10 different receivers last night. So they're very clearly spreading the wealth around. Does that go into sort of what you were saying of, hey, they're sort of keeping their formations and their route concepts very simple. He just can go to a couple of different receivers to sort of make up for not having a Stephon Diggs or something like that. And sort of another question to build off of that is maybe not having a wide receiver one that you think you have to run the offense through actually the best version of Josh Allen that we're seeing because of what he can do with so many different types of receivers?
I think a lot of what they do in the passing game is it allows Josh Allen to scan from one side of the field, to start on one side of the field and scan all the way to the other side of the field. And so, you don't want to put every single quarterback in that type of offense because that's tough to do. Like, the worse a quarterback is, the more you want to give him, okay, hey, if the will does this, so if the will linebacker moves this way, you throw it there. And if the will linebacker moves to the other way, you throw it to the other guy. Or if it's like, hey, if you're seeing it's cover two, we're going to throw to the left side because we have a cover two concept there. And if you're seeing that it's actually cover three, we're going to throw to the other side because we have a cover three beater on the other side. With this offense, and there's obviously other offenses like this, but with this offense, it is more of that, hey, we're going to start on one side of the field. Now, every offense in the NFL runs a mix of both, but they skew more on this pure progression type thing. So we're going to start on this side. You're going to have your routes. You're going to be able to move your eyes back in, and there's going to be routes that come across the field as you're moving your eyes back in. And so you get into a situation where Josh is so good at making the right decisions. It's, what I mean? Like, it's not just his incredible arm and the running and stuff. He's become this really incredible decision maker as well. So he's really good at making these decisions, saying like, hey, this guy's not open. This guy's not open. Let me move my eyes back. And generally those routes that are like later in the progression, we talked about it last week, the Falcons, like those routes are generally going to be routes that get open late. Like, they just kind of get open because they're feeling for a space in the zones, or they're running away from man coverage after 2.5 seconds, where you have the ability. Receiver generally is going to win later against man coverage than earlier against man coverage. So you have that ability, and it paired with Josh Allen's brain, where he's just so good at not forcing anything. That's why this team is so tremendously good right now without a number one receiver. And I think in this type of offense, like I'm not ready to say like, hey, don't, like the new meta for the NFL is don't have a number one wide receiver. But I think especially given that Stephon Diggs was not the kind of prime Stephon Diggs anymore last year, then I will say this works a lot better. I'm not like, I don't think when they had prime Diggs, like I think they were okay, but like, if they're not getting prime Diggs and you get some younger guys out there, then I think it makes a lot of sense. And just to echo your point about like the math buster stuff is like, You see it all the time in basketball. They talk about it all the time in basketball. Basketball is the best example of this because it's a slower half court type of slower tempo sport. But like everyone always says, like, hey, like the best players get doubled, and what do they do with what can they do when they get doubled, right? How can they break the math after they get doubled? And Josh Allen is like that. And the arm strength on the Keon Coleman touchdown, again, it's a good man beater. He gets an inch of separation. So all you have to do is put the ball out there. But there's a guy in his face. Like there's a guy like less than a foot, it feels like, away from Josh Allen when he throws that over route to Keon Coleman, and it's in stride, no problem, touchdown. Like we just don't see this very often.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. It's honestly just really exciting to watch week in, week out, because you don't know who's getting the ball. Joe Brady has been amazing this season. Probably didn't get his due in Carolina, and obviously fired probably before his time, let's say, in Carolina. He's been really good at just game planning. Like, again, they don't have a lot of concepts, but they can come in each week with some new shit to do that is based on what the defense does. And it works. The whole first drive is just game plan shit, man. Like, it's crazy. The whole first drive is just them saying, oh, you want to play man coverage? Here's a motion, and then we bring the motion back. Here's a running back coming out of the backfield that you don't see. Here's this. Like it's all that stuff, and it's really fun to watch. And it's a great pairing of quarterback to offensive coordinator with some nice skill position players and an O-line that's gotten better throughout his tenure there.
Obviously, like you said at the very beginning, you got to give Mahomes his respect for winning Super Bowls and awards and just all the postseason success and the close game success and everything like that. But in terms of guys who you are afraid they're going to beat you until they are literally on the ground and the refs are blowing the whistle. That's it. Like, you could have a free rusher screaming straight at him, and I would still be like, doesn't matter. Play's still alive. Josh Allen's going to make something happen. And I feel that way about Mahomes, right? You and I were chatting a little bit about the escapability before we hit record, and Mahomes is one of the best in the world. You mentioned this at, like, escaping the pocket, and there's pressure in his face, but, you know, he still has to sort of evade that tackle, and then, like, once he does, then he's able to make a clean throw. And he's, like you said, like, the best in the world at doing that. But Josh doesn't even have to evade the tackle. Like, Josh can get hit, and he's just still rocket exactly where it needs to go. When I was watching more of this game, when I was going back and watching the film, the thing that impressed me so much about Allen is how dangerous he is in the pocket, specifically because he does things that a lot of other quarterbacks do, but they can't get away with. Like, I think about when I'm scouting quarterbacks, and if you have a quarterback, Bo Nix was a little bit like this, for an example. Bo Nix would drift a little bit further back in the pocket than what you would want, right? He'd be in the shotgun and he'd have like a 3-step drop, but then after the 3-step drop, he would continue to sort of like drop as pressure would come at him, like as the offensive line was trying to stop the defensive line. And instead of maybe stepping up as much as he could, he would just kind of retreat, which is what a lot of quarterbacks want to do, right? It's sort of like that video game style where you hike the ball in shotgun and then you just back up. And then if it's not there, you're going to scramble to the sideline. You do all these crazy things. It works in video games. It doesn't really work in the pros. So like when I watched Bo Nix do that, I saw a lot of bad tendencies from him, because then he would be multiple steps past where the line of scrimmage is because he's already in shotgun. He's already taking a 3-step drop, and then he's dropping back even further, and then he'd try to like throw off the back foot, and you're doing all that. Now the ball's got to sail like 25 yards just to get to where the first down marker is, and you don't really have the arm strength and the zip to be able to do that. I can't remember exactly what throw it was last night, but there was a moment where Josh Allen was in shotgun. He was dropping 3 or 5 steps in his drop from shotgun. He continued to retreat, and he cannons it like over the middle to somebody. I don't think it was the Keon Coleman throw, but it was to somebody. And I go, nobody else can do that. Like, that's the kind of stuff that, like, him, like, you throw Anthony Richardson in there as well, but Anthony's nowhere near as consistent as Josh Allen is. But there are so very few quarterbacks that are actually able to complete throws in which they put themselves 10, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage voluntarily. And he does, but a lot of quarterbacks try to do it because they don't want to step up in the pocket. So the only other place to go is further back. So a lot of quarterbacks try to do that. Josh is just one of the very few quarterbacks who can actually make positive plays out of that. And that was something that I remember watching last night is like, if I was watching a prospect do this, more often than not, I'm writing that this is a negative, that they have to get better, that they have to stop doing this. And he does. And it works.
We did when he was at Wyoming. We said this is a negative. This is not good.
Right, and that's very true. That's very true. And like too often he would do that, and then it would be very obvious that he couldn't do it because he'd throw it into traffic. It'd be a turnover-worthy play because you get remember, right? The further you drop back and the further you have to throw the ball, the better anticipation and ball placement you have to have because the ball flight path is longer. Therefore, that gives the defender an opportunity to see it, recognize it, and break on the ball. And Allen is a cheat code, man. He's turning negatives into a positive just from talent level alone, which is incredible.
Not to make this about Anthony Richardson, but it's why I'm not ready to kind of give up on Anthony Richardson yet because, and it's been bad. Like, I'm not trying to say it's been good or anything,
right?
Like, this play so far, but it's like, well, give him a year, let him get his feet wet with playing in the NFL. He only had 3 starts last year, 2 starts. I don't even remember.
It was like 3.5. I think he got hurt in the 4th game, if I remember
correctly.
Correctly.
So yeah, it's bad. Like, I'm not trying to tell you it's actually good. Like, it's bad, but it was also bad for Josh Allen, and you have similar type of arm strength and creatability with their legs, so, and good movement in the pocket. Anyways, not about Anthony Richardson. We will most likely talk about Anthony Richardson at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh Allen, really good.